Thank you for watching this regional forecast for the Corn Belt. I'm Andrew Pritchard, meteorologist with Nutrien Ag Solutions. Well, as we look at the hazards map right now, fairly quiet story across the Corn Belt as we go into the weekend. We do have a winter storm watch across parts of southern Minnesota, northern Iowa, into portions of west central Wisconsin. We've also got winter weather advisories here across parts of the Ohio River Valley. Even though there's no advisory in effect, we will also see a little corridor of some very light snow sneaking through over the next 24 hours across parts of Iowa into western and central Illinois. Again, bringing just kind of a light dusting, a light coating, maybe an inch or so in some locations. So as we take a look at the satellite picture here on Friday morning, again, we can see the flow of the jet stream coming up and over the top of this ridge over the Pacific, and then the subtropical jet rushing in across the southern U.S. We see our departing storm system right now. We see the precipitation associated with that, the heaviest of which moving into the northeast region. Here's that little minor disturbance making its way across central Iowa this morning. This is the one that will sneak into central Illinois during the overnight, again dropping a light coating, a dusting, maybe an inch in some locations. We'll then watch for another storm system that's going to make its way through this region as we head into the weekend before we start talking a much larger, well-defined storm system across the central U.S. into mid-next week. Now, as we look at the temperatures across the region on Friday morning, 6 o'clock in the morning on Friday, again, we see colder air coming in on the backside of this storm system that just departed over the last day or so. But across the Corn Belt, temperatures behind a cold front on February 7th at 6 o'clock in the morning, in the mid-20s to upper 20s across this region. That's quite all right. I think we'll accept that this time of year. As we kind of look at the jet stream pattern, again, if we take a map here looking at the next 10 days of precipitation across North America, drawing in the jet stream around that, again, going up and over the top, split flow around this area of high pressure off the Pacific. We see the northern branch coming up and over the top of that ridge, and then the southern branch, the subtropical jet, come rushing in across the southwest. A pattern like that leads to clipper systems coming out of the Canadian Prairie, dropping a little bit of light snow across the northern plains into the upper Midwest, keeping that region on the cooler side. And then we see this active storm track across the Ohio River Valley into the south, with storm systems developing on that subtropical jet across the southern plains and then sweeping across parts of the Midwest, the Ohio River Valley, and then eventually the Northeast. So on the left, the next 10 days of total precipitation. On the right, the probability of 3 inches or more of snow accumulating just as we take it through the weekend here on the left. Or I'm sorry, no, this is over the next 10 days. I apologize, I got my dates mixed up here. So lots of precipitation across the southeast into the Ohio River Valley, even into portions of central Illinois and Indiana. We're talking about the potential for 1 to 2 inches of precipitation, and that threat for snow going to be highest here again with that system that makes its way through over the next 24 to 48 hours across portions of southern Minnesota, northern Iowa, into southern Wisconsin. That's where we have the winter storm watch as we head into the weekend as well. Now, we will have to talk about a storm system that develops later in the week, and we can see that when we look at the 500 millibar vorticity plot. We'll start off going through the weekend. Again, very, very subtle disturbance that's making its way through parts of Illinois and Iowa, dropping a little bit of light snow right there. You can barely see it here on the vorticity plot. We then head into the weekend. We're going to watch this next trough begin to dive in across the Pacific Northwest. We're going to see kind of a lead piece of that come across the Dakotas into the upper Midwest. You see it right there. That is our Saturday and Sunday precipitation maker across parts of the Corn Belt. Some light snow or some accumulating snow across this region, and then perhaps a wintry mix off to the south. Now, this is the piece that we have to watch as we head into the middle part of the week, at least one of the pieces. We're going to see this kind of break off while the lead wave makes its way across the upper Midwest over the weekend. As we get into Monday and Tuesday, we're going to see it now start to get picked up along with another piece, another wave making its way out of the Pacific Northwest. We're going to see some sort of phasing as these two then lift into the Ohio River Valley, into the Midwest, and bring some precipitation through the region. Again, very low confidence, I would say right now, as far as exactly how this is going to unfold. A high confidence we will see this storm system through this region. Low confidence, though, on who's going to see the snow and where the heaviest of the precipitation ends up. And if we take this even further, getting into next weekend, February 14th, 15th, and 16th, we see the pattern reload. We see another storm system come sweeping in from the southern plains into the Midwest. So a very active pattern continues with these clipper systems and the potential for these larger storm systems sweeping from the southern plains into the Midwest. Again, a pattern like this, we don't see big cold fronts sweeping well into the Gulf of Mexico. Instead, we see them kind of stalling out in this region, allowing flow to quickly return back to the central U.S. So we just kind of see a reloading of this Gulf of Mexico moisture. And again, that's what leads to this pattern of excessive rainfall across the Ohio Valley into the southern U.S. So over the next 24 hours, this is when we deal with the clipper systems making their way across the northern part of the country. We watch this first little disturbance again track through parts of Iowa, northern Missouri, into central Illinois, before we watch our weekend storm system. So let's time this out. Let's bring it back, looking at just the next 72 hours. Again, watching this area of snow clearing, getting into central Iowa, southern Iowa, into northern Missouri during the afternoon hours tonight. As we hit sunset, this begins to pivot into parts of central and south central Illinois. Getting into midnight now, snow falling from central Illinois into southern Illinois. And then as we get to sunrise on Saturday morning, probably looking at, again, a light coating to maybe a dusting across this corridor as we wake up, and then those flurries push into parts of southern Indiana, into central and southern Ohio as we go through the morning hours on Saturday. Now, as we get into Saturday afternoon, into Saturday evening, that's when we'll start to see some snow emerging across parts of the Dakotas. Then we'll watch this begin to move on off to the east during the overnight hours into Sunday morning. As we wake up on Sunday morning, heavy snow falling across this region here from parts of South Dakota into Minnesota, Iowa, and snow just now pushing into Wisconsin during the early morning hours on Sunday. We'll then start to see the southern end of the storm system start to fill in as it taps into a little bit more Gulf moisture coming in from the south. As it does so, we get into the mid part of the day on Sunday. We'll be looking at that snow moving into much of the state of Wisconsin, some snow falling across far northern Illinois. A wintry mix possible here across north central Illinois into central Illinois, kind of around the Interstate 80, Interstate 74, Interstate 72 corridor. That's where we could see that wintry mix as the storm system makes its way on off to the east. Total precipitation through the weekend then, as we look at things through 7 a.m. on Monday. Again, looking at the heaviest precipitation falling across this corridor as we start to tap into some of that moisture here, maybe an inch of precipitation possible across the southern half of Illinois into southern Indiana. And then, of course, this is the corridor where we expected that heaviest snow, where the winter storm watch is in effect across southern Minnesota, far northern Iowa, and then into west central portions of Wisconsin. That's where we're talking about 6 to 8 inches of snow with this system as it makes its way through Saturday and Sunday. We'll take a little look further out, zoomed out, and a longer range look, quickly heading through the weekend, watching this first storm system depart. We then watch the little disturbance making its way through Iowa, northern Missouri, and parts of Illinois during the overnight hours tonight, into Indiana and Ohio during the day on Saturday. Getting into Saturday evening, watching that snow emerge across the Dakotas before overspreading Minnesota and Wisconsin by Sunday, or Minnesota and northern Iowa by Sunday morning. Getting into western and central portions of Wisconsin by midday on Sunday, and that's when we start to see that wintry mix across this region, with rain extending off to the south into St. Louis and the Ozarks as we get into Sunday afternoon and evening. As we get into Sunday evening, warm air lifts off to the north, so we'll see that wintry mix become all rain across the state of Illinois and much of Indiana as the storm system makes its way off to the east. The front kind of lingers on the backside here, so precipitation continuing across the Mid-South and the Ohio River Valley as we get into Monday morning even. Kentucky and Tennessee seeing that precipitation linger into the overnight on Monday night, perhaps even into Tuesday morning. Then again, that frontal boundary kind of stalls out here. We go through a quiet phase to begin the week for many. High pressure across the region Tuesday into Wednesday. But then we quickly begin to return moisture to the area. We see that area of low pressure begin to develop across the southern plains as we get into Wednesday evening and Thursday. We start to see the storm system again quickly race off to the north and to the east. Again, low confidence in exactly how this is going to unfold. We've seen this storm system. We have high confidence in its existence, but every 6 to 12 hours we get a new run of the weather models here, and we've got slightly different solutions based on how those two waves evolve together. Remember, there's the one that kind of breaks off across this region from our weekend storm system. We then see another wave come in from the Pacific Northwest. There's some sort of phasing here across the central plains as this then lifts off to the north and to the east. So question marks here, question marks there, and that helps us solve the question mark that we've got across this region. So know the storm system's out there. Know we're going to be talking about that a lot here as we head through the next several days. Eric will have a big update as we get onto the other side of the weekend. We should have a much more clear idea by Monday morning. As we look at the total precipitation then, with the storm systems through the weekend, so this is Monday, once again, another look at that snow across parts of the upper Midwest, and then the heavier precipitation across the Ohio River Valley. Then we look at the precipitation that's forecast with the next storm system here, looking at the 3-day precipitation Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Another round of very heavy precipitation along and south of the Ohio River Valley, and then that potential for some snow across parts of the upper Midwest on the north side of that storm system. As we put those two together, looking at the total precipitation over the next 7 days, so all the way through February 14th, again, look at parts of the south here. 4.5 inches of precipitation, even as you get into parts of central Illinois, central Indiana. That's where we're looking at as much as 1 inch to 1.5 inches of precipitation down in toward the Ohio River Valley. And then that potential for some snow here across not just this region here, but even some light snow possible across areas that won't take a direct hit from these storm systems here across the Dakotas and parts of Nebraska, at least a chance for at least a trace of snowfall here over the next week. So you look at the probability over the next week for 3 inches of snow to accumulate or more. Again, pretty high confidence here. We're going to see upwards of 6 to 8 inches of snow as we head through the weekend, but low confidence where that swath ends up with that storm system that makes its way here late Wednesday into Thursday of next week. We'll just have to watch how this unfolds, try to figure out how much cold air is coming on the backside and how much precipitation we'll see wrapping around on the backside. Again, it all comes down to the phasing of those 2 separate waves as we get into the middle part of next week. Temperatures over the next 7 to 10 days, again, going to keep things, I would say, the warm days outnumbering the cold across this region. As you head off toward the north across the northern plains into the upper Midwest, this is where I think the cold days will outnumber the warm, especially as we head into next week. And then our transition zone right here will probably be doing much of a roller coaster ride as we head through the next 7 to 10 days.